Have you ever contemplated doing something bad, like really bad? You knew it was bad, but you felt still that you just had to do it. How did you justify that to yourself? Well, that's what this author is examining in a short selection of his recent novel, Anxious People. This is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. Okay, a bank robber robs a bank. Think about that for a moment. Obviously, it has nothing to do with you. You're a normal, decent person, so you would have never robbed a bank. But there are simply some things that all normal people understand that you must never, under any circumstances, do. You mustn't tell lies, you mustn't steal, you mustn't kill, and you mustn't throw stones at birds. We all agree on that. Well, except maybe swans, because swans can actually be passive-aggressive little bastards. But apart from swans, we mustn't throw stones at birds. And you mustn't tell lies. Unless, well, sometimes you have to, right? Like when your children ask, why does it smell like chocolate in here? Are you eating chocolate? But you definitely mustn't steal or kill. We can agree on that. Well, I mean, you mustn't kill people anyway. Well, unless they're Hitler. I mean, you're allowed to kill Hitler if you've got a time machine and an opportunity to do it, because you must be allowed to kill one person to save a million others and avoid a world war. I mean, anybody could understand that. But how many people do you have to save in order to be allowed to kill someone? 1,000,000? 150? 2? Obviously, you don't have an exact answer to that because nobody does. So let's take a much simpler example then. Are you allowed to steal? No, you mustn't steal. We agree on that. No one should be allowed to steal. But if you steal something small because you really have to, then that's probably okay. But does it mean that it's okay to steal something a bit bigger? And who decides how much bigger? For instance, if you feel that you really have to and no one will get hurt, is it okay to rob a bank then? No, it's probably not okay even then. I mean, you're probably right about that, because you'd never rob a bank, so you haven't got anything in common with this bank robber. Except fear, possibly. Because maybe you've been really frightened sometime, and so was the bank robber. Possibly because the bank robber had small children and therefore had a lot of practice at being afraid. Perhaps you too have small children, in which case you'll know that you're frightened the whole time. Frightened of not knowing everything, and of not having the energy to do everything, and of not coping with everything. Perhaps you have that in common with him after all. You probably have somebody in your life you do something stupid for. But obviously you would still never rob a bank. Of course not. But perhaps though you've been in love, and love can make you do quite a lot of ridiculous things. Getting married, for instance, having children, playing happy families, having a happy marriage. Maybe you have that in common. Until one morning, you look over your shoulder and realize that you're on your own. The person you were married to turned off somewhere along the way. Maybe you uncover a lie. That's what happened to the bank robber. And infidelity comes to light. And even if no one's actually been unfaithful to you, you can probably appreciate that it's enough to knock a person off balance. Especially if it wasn't a fling, but an affair that had been going on for a long time. You haven't only been cheated on, you've also been deceived. And the explanation is, well, or if you really want to be honest, I've been faithful with your boss. Unfaithful with your boss. Well, it can be a lot harder to get back up again, because that means the reason you've been working so much overtime is also the reason why you no longer have a marriage. Why, when you get to work the Monday after the breakup, your boss says, well, obviously it's going to be a bit uncomfortable for everyone involved, so perhaps it would be easiest if you no longer worked here. On Friday, you were married and had a job, and on Monday, you're homeless and unemployed. What do you do then? Talk to a lawyer? No, because then a letter arrives from a lawyer. It says that the other parent has decided to sue for sole custody of the children because the current situation in which the other custodian has neither a home nor a job is untenable. We really must think of the children. As if there were anything else a parent with no home or job ever thinks about. The other parent also sent an email saying, "You need to pick up your things. They're packed away in a storeroom in the basement." So what do? Well, maybe you go there late one evening to avoid the shame of bumping into any of the other neighbors. And maybe you realize you've got nowhere else to go, nowhere to take your things. You haven't got anywhere to live and it's starting to get cold outside. So you stay in the storeroom in the basement. In another storeroom, you find some blankets. And so you take the blankets so you can sleep better. And for some reason, beneath the blankets is a toy pistol. So you sleep with that in your hand, thinking that if some crazy burglar breaks in during the night, you can scare them away with it. And then you start to cry because you realize you're the crazy burglar. This goes on for a week. You might not know exactly how it feels, but perhaps you've also had moments when you stare at yourself in the mirror and think, this isn't how life was supposed to turn out. That can terrify a person. So, one morning, you do something desperate. Well, I mean, not you, obviously. You'd have done something different, of course. You'd have found out about the law and what your rights were, and you'd have gotten a hold of a lawyer and gone to court. Unless perhaps you wouldn't have done any of that, because perhaps you didn't want to make a fuss in front of the children. You didn't want to be one of those chaotic parents, so maybe you thought, somehow, if I get the chance, I'll find a way to sort this out without upsetting them. So when a small apartment becomes available on a monthly lease, you think, if I can just manage a month, I'll have time to find a job. Then they won't be able to take the children away from me as long as I have somewhere to live. So you empty your bank account, you sell everything you own, you scrape together enough money for 1 month, and you lie awake 30 nights in a row, wondering how you're going to afford another month. And then suddenly, you can't. I know you're supposed to go to the authorities in that situation. That's what you're supposed to do. But you don't go to the welfare office because you're scared they'll take the children away from you. All your life you've promised yourself you'll cope with everything, not be a chaotic person, not have to beg for help. So you put the letter from the lawyer who wants to take the children away from you in your pocket, next to the letter from your landlord, which says if you don't pay the rent today, you're going to be evicted. Right there, right then, it takes next to nothing to knock you off balance. One really bad idea is enough. You find the toy pistol that looks like a real pistol. You make holes in a black woolly hat and pull it down over your face. You go into the bank that wouldn't lend you money because you didn't have any money, and you tell yourself you're only going to ask for 6,500 kroner for the rent, and that you'll return it as soon as you get paid. How? A more ordered mind might be asking, but well, perhaps you haven't really thought that far ahead. Perhaps you think you'll just go back in the same ski mask with the same pistol and force them to take the money back, because all you need is 1 month. All you need is one single chance to sort everything out. Later, it turns out that that damn toy pistol, the one that looked almost real, looked real because it was real. This wasn't how life was supposed to turn out.